Welcome, everyone. I'm Matt Reiners, co-founder of Eversound, and today I'm delighted to be talking to Whitney Lane, the Senior Vice President of Operations for the Watercrest Senior Living Group, to discuss staffing. Thanks for joining us today, Whitney.
Thanks for having me, Matt. I appreciate it.
Of course. And we were just joking about coming up on our 2-year anniversary of getting to know each other. And I know Watercrest is one of the leaders in senior living, and your guys' growth has just been pretty amazing. And I've just been an outsider looking in and just really impressed by what you guys are doing day in and day out. And I know when we're talking about staffing, it's about getting the best and the brightest to come. And I'm curious, how has Watercrest Senior Living really addressed retention and recruitment since COVID-19 has been a thing?
Yeah. So, Matt, first off, I wanted to say, again, happy anniversary, and thank you so much for your partnership with us. We have really enjoyed working with Eversound. It's been a pleasure. So, thank you for that. In terms of recruitment and retention, it's been tough. It has been tough during the pandemic. I would actually say that probably like in the heat of the pandemic, it wasn't even as bad as it is right now, where we're kind of feeling like we're at the tail end. We've begun being able to open back up and have visitation and do tours and things like that. But, now we're seeing less and less positive cases, but we're finding it harder and harder to find good associates, people to come to work and show up to work every day and be committed to the cause. So, what we've tried to be really careful about doing at Watercrest is not to change what kind of associate we're looking for within, for our company, just because of the pandemic. Certainly there are things that we have changed, in terms of safety and assistance with COVID, financial relief, and I'll talk about that in a second. But, what we feel like is most important and at the core is that we don't change what we look for in an associate for our communities. And that is, a person who has a servant heart. Our mission at Watercrest is to welcome, to care, and to serve. And so we look for servant leaders. That's what we coach people about, is being a servant leader. I'm here to serve you. What can I do to serve you? The CEO, my boss of the company, he will say at the tail end of a phone call, is there anything I can do to serve you better? And so we want to make sure that just because there's this staffing crisis going on, that we're not sacrificing what's important to the company and to our residents, and that is hiring the right people, and the people that have servant leader hearts, because that's what we're all about. We're all here to serve. But in terms of, there have been some little changes, and I guess you would call them big changes, that doesn't really have to do with the type of person that we look for or how we're changing recruiting. But it's about what we have tried to ensure and reassure our associates with. And that is one, safety in their environment. So during this pandemic, that's been key, is that our associates feel safe to come to work every day, feel safe to be able to go back home and not, spread this terrible illness to their family, their loved ones. And so safety has been a priority for us, to make sure that not just the safety of our residents, but the safety of our associates. So we have always worked very hard to make sure that we had all the appropriate PPE on hand. In the beginning of the pandemic, that was the struggle, was getting PPE. You had to outsource from different countries and do all kinds of crazy searches to find PPE for your staff. But we always had it. We always had enough PPE for all of our staff so that they could feel comfortable coming to work each day and serving the residents. So safety was a huge priority for us, making sure that our associates felt safe. The second thing is, having a feeling of some financial security if something were to happen due to COVID. So different companies did some different things. You probably heard through the internet things about hero pay. And, we looked at that, and initially you hear hero pay and you think, oh, that sounds like a great idea. Our staff is heroes. But then as we took kind of a longer look at it, we thought, but our staff was heroes before the pandemic. And they're going to be heroes to us after the pandemic too. And so we don't want to give them something that's associated with being a hero that's then taken away later. And then it feels like we're saying you're no longer a hero. And that's not the case. So what we did was something a little different. The two owners of our company, they set up it's called the Watercrest Family Care Fund. And they put their own money in this fund. And our associates just would complete an application if something had happened in their life that was related to COVID that caused them financial burden or stress. And they would send in that application and it would get reviewed and they could get approved for financial assistance. So those were the two main things that we really tried to focus on during the pandemic, to help retain our associates, let them know that we care, and continue to be able to recruit new people too.
No, I love it. And it's great to hear, Whitney. And, I think Watercrest is one of those places that actually practices what you preach. And it's great to hear it's coming from the top down, right? Because if they're not bought in and involved, then it's not going to, filter through the rest of the organization. And, you could touch on how like the expectations of potential candidates, really thinking about that safety, right? Because I'm sure they're watching the news, they're seeing all of these terrible stories because that's what the news likes to cover, even though, I think we would agree that there's so many more amazing things that are happening in communities today. So, you talk about the financial security and the safety and wellness, but are there any other expectations you're seeing from potential candidates as you're, interviewing or might be new to senior living?
So it's interesting how dynamics have shifted since the pandemic. I couldn't tell you what was number 2 on their list prior to the pandemic. I think always number 1 is pay. Number 2 on their list now is safety. So because everybody, not just our industry, not just our company, across the country, people are struggling with staffing. And so we're all interested in figuring out what are employees, potential applicants looking for. And so I attended a recent webinar that was put on by a VP of mycnajobs.com. And it's very interesting. I was very glad I attended because I walked away with some helpful tidbits. But one of the things that, she kind of put up on the screen was that the number 1 thing they're looking for is pay. But the number 2 thing is safety. And I thought that was extremely interesting. And I feel like we've got the safety piece covered. But then she talked about how there's a new normal for applicants. So where somebody may have been working someplace that did have the hero pay, or they were given, some sort of bonuses because they worked during COVID. They had more flexible time off, these kinds of benefits that came about, specifically because of the pandemic. They're looking at that as being their new normal, and that's what they're looking for in a job. So, the person doing the webinar had kind of talked about like really looking at your job posting, because that's what they're looking at. It's what's attracting them to whether or not they're going to apply to your company. But kind of as I was saying earlier, Matt, that at the end of the day, the kind of applicant we're looking to attract is the person who's attracted to our mission and the purpose of serving. So at the very top of our posting, it doesn't say what the pay is. It doesn't say what benefits they're going to get. Benefits is located somewhere down on the bottom. But at the very top, it says servant leadership. And that is the person who's scrolling through and looking to see where they want to apply for. We're wanting to catch the eye of the person that sees servant leadership and wants to come to work for us.
I love it. No, and it's great to get those people into the door too, because, again, if it's starting from the top and that's who you're hiring for, and that's one of your, biggest indicators if they'll be successful there or not, it's a part of the culture, right? It's a part of your DNA. And, it makes a lot of sense, especially like on the front end. And then when we think about, staffing, so there's like the back end too. So, in your experience, or even what you've seen over the last 18 months, how has Watercrest handled staff burnout and, potentially low morale?
Yeah, that's a great question, Matt. And, we are really trying to make sure that our communities remain consistently focused on staff appreciation. It should be something that they have already built into their community plan of monthly staff appreciation, but you can get caught up in the whirlwind during this time of the pandemic. And we want to make sure that the whirlwind doesn't mean that we forget staff appreciation. Staff want to know that they're appreciated for what they're doing, that they feel valued, that they have value. And so we do lots of different things. I see on social media, and our communities will send us pictures of, different things they're doing for their staff for appreciation. They're, making their break room super cool with all kinds of different, snacks and things like that. They're bringing in food trucks. They're having movie night. They're doing, they're painting. They're doing all kinds of different things just to bond with them and just let them know that they care. But the second thing that I just think is really, really important and that we can't forget is acknowledging their struggle and acknowledging that this is a hard and difficult time. And they are working extremely hard. We are extremely thankful. And these are unprecedented times. And we know it's a struggle and we get it. And we're here to support them. We're here to serve alongside them. We're here to help them. We're here to listen. I just think that it's a huge mistake to give staff appreciation, but not to let them know what you're appreciating them for. You really need to acknowledge the daily struggle they're going through, having to wear PPE all day, having to worry about, am I going to go home and potentially give something to my 5-year-old or to my mother that lives with me or to my grandmother? We have to acknowledge those struggles and just thank them for what they're doing every day.
Yeah, it's such a simple but powerful concept, right? Just like the thinking of appreciation, saying thank you, listening, and empathizing with what they might be going through. Because, we're all in the same storm, but we're all in different boats in that storm. And how do we really go after that as a cohesive unit and let those people know on the front lines that, hey, we're here for you. We're here to continue to enable you to be your very best and continue to support you there. And I think it sounds like you guys are doing an awesome job at it, but I'm curious, how would you say to how can other providers empower staff for better job satisfaction and really help to drive home this idea of person-centered care, which it seems like you guys do a really good job at?
Thank you. I would say that involving them, including them in things. So what I mean by that is everybody has kind of in this industry kind of has a morning stand up. And usually what you'll see is it's at the director level. The directors meet in the mornings. But where I see the most successful teams and the most successful communities is when they're involving their frontline associates in that stand up. And so involve them in the stand up, involve them in knowing what your occupancy is and what tours are coming today and what the goal is for today. Sit with them and ask them about the resident care that's being provided, involve them in the care plan process, allow them to attend the care plan meetings. Sometimes it's just about, sitting with them, listening to them, asking them questions so that they feel valued, so that they feel heard, so that they feel like they have a purpose. So at Watercrest, we talk about the 4 Ps. It's passion, platform, purpose, and potential. And, it's really important that people feel passionate about what they do and that we help fulfill that. It's really important that we give them a platform to jump off of and to be able to do what it is they do best. It's important that they feel like they have a purpose, which is why we do need to include them in things, because without that, they're just kind of coming in and going through the motions. And then potential is, identifying what their strengths are and what we can do to help hone in on those strengths. So, I think about right now, due to nursing shortages, we have started utilizing med techs more. Well, that's a career path for your resident care specialists who are your, frontline caregivers. And they may not understand that path or what that looks like. They may think they have to, go to school for a year in order to become a med tech. They may not realize that that is, a 6-hour course that's provided by an RN that if they show interest in that they could do. So, involving them, giving them something to grow towards and helping them with those 4 Ps that I discussed a minute ago. And what that's going to do is you're going to have a associate who feels really valued, and someone who feels valued is going to go above and beyond for you, for your residents, and that's going to help with the care that's being provided. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the answer that I would give to that question. How do we empower them and how do we, help them with person-centered care? I think that's what we would do.
I feel like we need to give you a microphone to drop after that. That was great. Yeah. And it makes so much sense too, right? Like just involving the frontline workers and just like listening and taking, and they're in it day in and day out, and they might see things that other people might see. And I really like your idea too of, involving them in the main key performance indicators, right? Like what is our occupancy at today? What tours are coming in? Like if we can work together and be, this cohesive unit. I've said it before, like working towards a common purpose and a common goal and getting to know the residents, it sets everyone up for success. And everyone likes to be a part of a winning team because no one likes to lose. And Whitney, this has been great. And I've got one last question for you.
Okay.
What key takeaways would you advise like other senior living providers? And I think you've already hit on many good ones, but what would you give to other providers to take away as it relates to staffing challenges?
Yeah, so I took some takeaways again from that call, the webinar that I was on with mycnajobs.com. But when I started really thinking about, because obviously it's top of mind right now, recruitment and retention, and when I started thinking about that and seeing the similarities in what we kind of need to be teaching our communities in terms of recruitment, and what we teach our teams in terms of sales and prospect development, they run so similar. It's such a similar course. And so what I would say is, kind of think about it that way. You want to be the first one to get to that applicant. You want to try multiple times and in multiple different ways to get in touch with them. One of the things that I learned from that webinar was that you get a higher percentage of response on their from the applicant on the second time you reach out to them, which I had no idea. I would have thought it was the first. So that's really meaningful information for people to be armed with and know that, hey, I need to continue to reach out. So, reaching out frequently in different modes and mechanisms, but, and then making sure that, you don't delay and bringing this person in, getting them in for that interview, getting that paperwork completed, because whoever does it faster and many times is going to win that applicant. So, being on it is really the name of the game. But the last thing I would say, and again, similar to sales, is keeping that relationship going. So even if that applicant ends up going somewhere else, continue to stay in touch with them, continue to check in, see how they're doing. When you establish that connection with them, if they ever sour on where it was they landed or ended up, they might come back to you. So, it's all about relationship building, and I would just say being quick on the draw is kind of the main things I think I would recommend to other providers who are struggling right now.
Yeah. And I love the way how you compare it to kind of like the sales process as well, because it's really just selling Watercrest, right? And getting people to come in. So I love the approach and what you guys are thinking of. And hopefully no one in Watercrest immediate areas will take any of this advice, and we can just make sure that it's you guys. But
we will win.
Well, Whitney, it's been awesome chatting with you. I appreciate you making the time here today. Any final words?
No, just thank you, Matt. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk with you today. I hope to get to see you again soon. Congratulations on the upcoming new family. And thank you for everything that Eversound does. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Whitney. And until next time.